I just tidied it up on the bandsaw. So we're roughly 2.5 inches wide there and about 1 1/4 at the tip, parallel for most of the way. So it's still only a rough down, but taking off that excess shows me how much thickness I've got here, so a load of this can come off. Obviously a load of that. I've got a bit of a feature here which I'll have to work around. I might excavate that a bit. I'll get the bark off it soon, but as always roughing it down by degrees. A lovely thin sapwood there. Yeah, sapwood's very nice at that end, gets a bit fatter in the middle and thicker at this end. We've got some very sexy undulations here, so she could end up looking very pretty. Long and lazy I'm going to make this one. It'll be like shooting a yard of pump water. I'm still working on the deer sculpture that's coming along, and I thought I'd try the old steel wool in white vinegar to act as a stain to help age the oak back to a nice grey finish. Well, I couldn't believe how quick it worked. I painted a bit on a piece of freshly sawn oak, and within a matter of minutes it had done that. It's a bit blacky blue, but I think what I'll do is I'll dilute some of it and give it another go. I've taken off a lot of the bark and sapwood, that end being quite heavy handed because that was the side with the thick sapwood. This side I'm having to be a lot more delicate, just holding the door knife very gently and just trying to work off the sapwood. Although it is a bit thicker at this end, I can get a bit more heavy handed, and I'll need to investigate this. Obviously there's a side branch coming out of there, but we'll see what we do with that. I mean, it will possibly just be blended in, sort of. There's a bit of a natural dip, and leave a bit of width this side to compensate, maybe have a bit of a waggle in the limb. We'll see as we get, work it down a bit more. On that limb I've tidied up the belly a bit as well, but you can see it's just massively too thick still. But just trying to nibble away at the bulk and get it, well, really just get it so it starts to flex a little bit, and then I can really see what I'm doing. Meanwhile, that's my test bit of oak. That's with some of the diluted wire wool and vinegar solution. It's a bit bluey. I think I'll add a bit of tea, some tea bags left soaking in a little bit of water to brown it up a bit. Now, as I'm roughing down here, I've got a bit of a crack showing, but hopefully that will disappear. There's no sign of it on the back, and I've got a lot of wood to remove yet, so there's no need to panic, and it doesn't look manky or over deep. So we'll just keep on keeping on. Yeah, a few more strokes of the draw knife and that's gone. You can see I'm sort of narrowing towards the junction of sap and heartwood, but keeping the belly rounded. Remove it from the edges first, and then the crown. This is crack here still, but I've got a lot of thickness there to remove. I've just got it roughed out a fair bit. If I lean hard on it, I don't know if you can just see that's starting to flex. Probably more in this limb, I don't know. You can see there's a very long way to go. I've taken a bit more off the belly just to get it flexing a bit more, and you'll notice it's just got a little hint of natural reflex, which is very nice. If I lie it on the floor like that, at the grip you can see daylight, which is nice. Get a couple of fingers under there. This is probably ridiculously early to try it on the tiller, but I just want to get a feel for how it's moving. Also, as it's longer than I usually make a primitive, there's more leverage. I just want to see, is it vaguely even, and is it, you know, got plenty of draw weight when it should have a... There, she's flexing. I mean, there's 50 pounds, so yeah. Flexing nice and even, not much happening, way too thick, which is what we expected. As I'm taking down this limb, this is becoming more obvious as to what it is. So I think I'm just going to probably scoop that out and just have a waggle in the limb, because this tiny thin bit of heartwood is just going to be too silly. But I'll leave this curve here as the side of the bow, and I'll just take that out. I might just use my rasp to do it. I could draw a knife in from this end, but if I try and come this way it will probably snag, so I might just chop in. I might even just rough out that little... no, it's not worth the bandsaw. I'll just rasp it out actually, see what I've got. There, you can see that's rasped it out. It doesn't affect the width of the bow too much. And I've left, I haven't gone right down. I haven't taken it all out yet, because like I say, always, if you remove half of what you think you ought to, you can take more out later. But it gives you an idea how much width there is there, how much thickness rather. And I can blend the width of the bow a little bit. Because I've got plenty, I mean 2 inches will be plenty of width. I think I've got about 2.5 at the moment. If I narrow it from that edge, I can also lose some of this dodgy knot at this end. So I'll probably just whip that through on the bandsaw quickly. Now I've run that through on the bandsaw, again taking off less than needs to come off, but you can see now I've taken off just a narrow edge. You can see it looks like there's a lot more heartwood than was obvious at first. Compare that side to this side. I'd reduced the heartwood quite thin. Oh, not much heartwood. Obviously as you get towards the thicker bit of the bow where it's crowned, where the curve of its growth is, there is a lot more heartwood. So I'll slim this edge again and maybe get her back up on the tiller. And it's barely moving at the moment, but I just like to keep a track of it. Again, if I do a lot of work on one limb, I'll then move over and balance it on the other. And you can also see this other knot on that edge is virtually gone now, and that will disappear as I narrow this edge. See if she's flexing a bit more. Yeah, definitely you can see it. Left limb's got a bit of movement in it now. Mostly there, and I can feel where thick hit goes thin then fat again, so that's a weak point. I'll just put a W there just so I know. And it's not weak in terms of the finished bow, but just relative to the rest of the limb. And this limb's obviously got to have a lot of work, get some weight down here. Bring this one into line with it, and then we can probably start thinking about, you know, progressing towards somewhere sensible. I think notionally this will be the upper limb, because it will be slightly longer and a bit prettier. But I've worked down the sapwood this side where it was thick, also the heartwood. I'm getting it closer to that line where heart and sap meet. I've got them both bending relatively even now and coming back far enough almost to a brace height, but certainly to a point where I can see what's going on. And I've also tried to shape around these undulations a bit and taking out that funny knot on that side, but now it's to a point where I can probably start looking at the width of it, narrowing the tips a bit, perhaps cutting in a bit of a grip, because I've decided that that right limb will be the upper limb, the one with a nice undulation. But you can see that's moving a lot more evenly now. And if you say where bit stiff here, but the whole limbs are moving nicely. I noticed on my last bow the outers weren't working enough. But if we call that 50 at 14, that's equivalent to 100 at 28. So you can see we've got a lot to do. I don't know if I mentioned I'm looking for £50 at 28 here. But at least we're in the ballpark now. It's coming back evenly. Maybe I can brace it. I can think about coming in gently for the grip here, making the tips a bit narrower. I might leave it fairly wide at the end with the nocks cut in at the sides of the limb, a bit like a mere heath, or I might narrow it to the nice slender tips. Light outers, you know, give you more arrow speed. You know, you're not moving a lot of waste wood, you know, just working the bow. We'll see.